Okay, this is the Unit 6 study guide for the Math 3 Unit 6 test, which will be on Wednesday, May 20th, 2015. The first question says, what is the value of cosine 270? That just means find the cosine of 270. So what is the value of just means what is it? What is that number? So we want to find the angle 270 degrees right here. So we use the point. The coordinates of that point are 0, -1. So when I look for the cosine, I'm using the point 0, -1. Remember, in any point, cosine is your x value. So 0 would be the cosine of the value of the cosine of 270 degrees. Number 2, you have to convert the 335 radians or degrees to radians. So remember, it's degrees, the equation is degrees over 180 times pi. So we take 335, divide by 180, do math, enter, enter, and you get 67 pi. I'm sorry, this is number 4. I skipped 2 and 3. You get 67 pi over 36 radians when you put that in your calculator. Okay, back up to number 2. We're at negative 120 degrees. So in your calculator you put negative 120 over 180 times pi, and that'll give you negative 120 divided by 180, math, enter, enter, gives you negative 2 pi over 3. That would be the answer. If you looked at the study guide that I did, that one was incorrect, so I'm going to fix that. And when you look at the solutions on the wiki this afternoon, go by the fixed one, not what you saw in class today. Number 3, the tangent of 3 pi over 2. At the unit circle, I want to find 3 pi over 2. Here's pi over 2, so I'm thinking 3 pi over 2 is down here somewhere. And it's the same one we used before. So we're using 0, -1 again. So the point is 0, -1. And tangent, remember, is y over x. So this will be -1 divided by 0. So tangent of 3 pi over 2 is undefined because you can't divide by 0. The value of sine of negative 225. So number 5, remember you add 360 to get the reference angle. And when you do that, you get 135 degrees. So I really want the sine of 135 degrees. Well, that is that point is negative square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. So the sine would be the y value, which is square root of 2 over 2. And 3 expressions equivalent to sine of 60. When I look at the unit circle, the sine of 60 is this. So I need 3 more expressions that are equivalent to square root of 3 over 2. I see a square root of 3 over 2 in the second quadrant, right here. I see a -1 square root of 3 over 2. I can't use that. Same thing down here, so I can skip the whole third quadrant. This is negative, but I have a positive one here, and then I see one here. Okay, well, I know that at 120 degrees, that is also the sine. So I know the sine of 120 is one of my answers. Sine of 120 degrees. And then we also had this one here. That isn't sine, though, because it's the x value. So x value is your cosine. So cosine of 330. Cosine of 330 degrees. Now sometimes you could write this in radians too, so you could write cosine of 11 pi over 6. That would also be correct. So here I could write cosine, because it's the x value, cosine of 30 or cosine of pi over 6. I'm just going to stick with the degrees, so cosine of 30 degrees. There's 3 expressions that also have the value square root of 3 over 2. Okay, number 7 has 6 parts to it. I need to find all these different values. So for part A, I need the sine of 30 degrees. Okay, we're just looking at 30 degrees. 30 degrees is up here. Now this is the cosine, I need the sine, so that 1/2 is what I'm going to use. Let's erase all this stuff so we can start over. So the 30 degrees, the cosine is square root of 3 over 2. So this one is square root of 3 over 2. For b, cosine of 5 pi over 4, where's 5 pi over 4? Right here. So cosine is going to be the x value, so it's negative square root of 2 over 2. Negative square root of 2 over 2. C, I don't know why I did that. C also is a cosine. Cosine of pi. So back to the unit circle, pi, cosine, x value, negative 1. So the value of the cosine of pi is negative 1. D, cosecant of 300 degrees. Okay, so now I'm going to have to do a little figure in here. 300, I need the sine, because cosecant is reciprocal of sine. So I want the reciprocal of negative square root of 3 over 2. Reciprocal of negative square root of 3 over 2 would be negative 2 over square root of 3. However, we cannot leave a radical in the denominator. So I need to rationalize my denominator by multiplying by that square root of 3 over square root of 3. I take the denominator, multiply it by both the numerator and the denominator. You can't multiply radicals and integers together, so you would leave those just as if this was an x. So this is negative 2 root 3 on top, and when you multiply a square root by itself, it undoes the square root. So it's like the inverse function, and that undoes the inverse functions undo each other basically. So this is actually just 3. And if you think about square root of 3 times square root of 3 is square root of 9. Square root of 9 is 3. You can't simplify this any further, so this would be your answer. Cosecant of 300 is negative 2 root 3 over 3. Cosecant of 360, I guess I'm going to have to move down here. 360, cosecant is 1 over y, or if I did the reciprocal, it would be like doing 1 over y, because if I did this over 1, we just flip it, it would be 1 over 0. So I do 1 over 0. However, I can't divide by 0, so that again is undefined. And then f, cotangent of negative 540. Well, I'm going to need to get the reference angle for that. And it looks like I have to add 360 twice, because I know when I add 360 once, I'm still not going to get a positive angle. So I'm going to add 720, because that's 2 times 360, and I get 180. So the cotangent of negative 540 is the same as the cotangent of 180 degrees. So cotangent, remember, is x over y. So this would be negative 1 divided by 0. This equals negative 1 divided by 0, which is also undefined. So those are the six problems listed under number 7. And now we're going to look at our graphs. The first graph, y equals 3 sine 2 theta. Well, a in this problem is 3, and b is 2. The number in front of your angle is your b. The number in front of the sine or cosine function is your a. Well, amplitude is the absolute value of a. So the absolute value of 3 is just 3. And period is 2 pi over b. 2 pi over b. So 2 pi over b would be 2 pi over 2. And that reduces to 2 divided by 2 is 1. So these cancel out and I just have pi. So my period is pi. My amplitude is 3. That means my maximum is 3 and my minimum is negative 3. Remember, you draw one long line for the x-axis, not quite so long for the y. Make your marks here. The max goes here, min goes here, period goes here. And I'm going to find the 3 points in between. This is 0. So the 3 points equally distant, or that divide the space between 0 and pi into 4 equal parts. So I take half of this, and that's pi over 2. half of that, I just multiply this denominator by 2, and that gives me pi over 4. Okay, so to get half of this, it's like pi over 2 times 1/2. So that would be pi over 4. And then I take the numerator and multiply it by 3. So this would be 3 pi over 4. And then to graph this, I'm using the sign, so that is 0 max, because this is a positive function, 0 min 0. So I'm going to put my points starting with the angle 0, so that's 0. Angle pi over 4 would be max. Then we got our 0. The next angle is 0, I'm sorry, min, and then 0. So 0 max, 0 min, 0. And there's your sine curve in Seahawks colors. Okay, we're going to number 9. 9 does not have a coefficient, so that means A is equal to 1 and B is equal to 2. That gives me an amplitude equal to the absolute value of 1, or just 1, and a period equal to 2 pi over 2, which is pi. Going back to that previous one, remember I forgot to do the frequency. Frequency is just equal to B, and that is 2. So that means it repeats 2 times when you go from 0 to pi, and that makes sense because you go through one complete cycle from 0 to pi, so it'll go through twice from 0 to 2 pi. I think I said pi before, I meant 2 pi. So in this one, frequency is going to be 2 also, so it's going to be the same thing, and it makes sense because they have the same period. Okay, so I'm going to make my axes, and max is 1, and the min is -1. So I put a 1 and -1 here, put the period here. Same points. So I know this is pi over 2, pi over 4, and 3 pi over 4. And then this is sine. No, I'm sorry, this is cosine. So I'm going to use, and it's positive, I'm going to use max, 0, min, 0, max for the cycle. So I will use at the angle 0, max, 0, min, 0, max. Just cycle through and make your little bowl. And there's your cosine from 0 to pi. So one period of the cosine function. The third graph, A equals 4, B equals 8. So my amplitude is going to be the absolute value of 4, which is 4. Period is going to be 2 pi over 8. This reduces 2/8 reduces to 1/4, so this will be pi over 4. And the frequency is just B, so that's 8. That means this is going to repeat 8 times between 0 and 2 pi, which makes sense because the period is pi over 4. Okay, my max is 4. My min is -4. And the period is pi over 4. Again, multiply that by 1/2 and you get pi over 8. Multiply that by 1/2 and you get pi over 16. Take the numerator, multiply by 3, and that will be 3 pi over 16. And we are doing sine. So I've got 0, and it's positive. So 0 max, 0 min, 0. So your one period of the sine function between 0 and pi over 4 looks like that. If you did it from 0 to pi, you would repeat that 4 times. Last problem. Find the amplitude, period, and equation of the following graph. The amplitude's easy. You just look at this. It's marked 4, so that is your amplitude. For the period, I'm going to use 1. I'm going to figure out whether this is sine or cosine. I know it's cosine because if it were sine, it would be crossing the origin, and it does not cross the origin. 0, 0 would be on the graph, and it's not. So I know this is cosine. So I know it should go max 0, min 0, max, or if it's negative, min 0, max 0, min. This is positive because it starts at max. So max 0, min 0, max. When you get there, you've gone through one complete cycle of the cosine. So that tells me that's one period. And since that ends at pi, right there, that tells me the period equals pi. Okay, so in order to write the equation, remember you have to have that b, and I don't know what b equals. It's not the period. The b does not equal the period, but remember you use b to get the period. So if I were to figure out the period, it would be 2 pi over b. And since I know the period equals pi, I know that that should be equal to pi. If once I solve this, it should be equal to pi. So in order to get b, I'm going to have to cross multiply. So I have pi times b equals 2 pi. Divide by pi, and you get b equals 2. Since b equals 2, I can make my equation, because it's y equals a sine b theta. And so a, we said, since it's positive, a must be positive 4. The amplitude was 4. So I go 4 sine b, which is 2 theta. So there's your sine function equation.